Houston, we have a problem, but it's a good one. You have two QBs, and you're trying to find out who is number one, CJ Stroud versus Davis Mills. Who's going to win this quarterback battle? We'll predict it next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout over with the Draft Network, as well as the host of the Locked On Clemson Tiger podcast. Guys, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every single day, Monday through Friday. Man, thank you for being the family and our every single dayers. But as always, my guy, the champ, is always with me. My boy Keith Sanchez, Mr. LSU himself. You can find and follow him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man. And like my guy DP says, man, 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, man. But you know why we're here? We are here to bring you that championship level content surrounding the NFL Draft 24/7, 365. You know where to tap in, man. Like we say, man, we don't stop. We keep this thing going. We keep it rolling, man. But we're in our training camp series, right? Training camp has started. Like we keep saying, we're almost there to football, right? I seen something with college football was like 37 days away. So I mean, the NFL is T-minus 50, and we're deep in the training camp. And we know we had to start with these play callers, right? The money makers, the quarterbacks. So we're going to keep this show going. We'll keep this series going with the training camp quarterback battles, man. We've been highlighting the quarterback battles with some of the top I guess we say top QB battles, right, in the NFL that everybody's watching. And we're going to start in H-Town, DP. We're going to start in H-Town and start with CJ Stroud versus Davis Mills. I want to ask you, do you think this is a situation that just gets handed to CJ Stroud? Because people are pretty much out on Davis Mills. So how are you looking at this quarterback battle, and what do you think will unfold?
Man, I think DeMeco Ryans, being such a hard-nosed coach that he is, kind of old school in a way, he's great with players, but I feel like he would make CJ earn it, right? A little different than the approach that Frank Reich took, right? Frank Reich came out at one day, the first day of training camp, right? For everybody's there, and he's like, Bryce Young is our QB1. All right, cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's one way to, that's one way to go about it. I think that DeMeco Ryans might make it just say, okay, it's an open competition, right? Now it could be one of those situations where we like, okay, fast forward, CJ Stroud's the guy. But at least make CJ Stroud go out there. And what was one of the biggest things that I learned about CJ Stroud this entire draft process coming into the 2023 NFL draft? Oh, he's a competitor. Like, you know what I mean? You go back to the combine, right? He's like, I think he's right behind Anthony Richardson. And he sees Anthony Richardson uncork one of those 60-yard bombs. And CJ kind of like looks like, okay, that's the type of time we on. Like, this is what we doing. Okay, cool. So then he walks up and he uncorks a bomb. Then they just go and throw for throw, and you just saw that competitiveness in him, right? And then I just saw a clip of him. Like, I didn't know he was a standout basketball player from high school, but somebody dropped his high school highlights. Oh yeah, CJ Stroud got game. He can hoop. You know what I mean? So he's like getting ready for training camp out there hooping on cats, man. Out there, Steph Curry hitting threes and stuff. So I think you make it I think if you tell him it's a competition, I think you get the best out of Stroud in camp. And then I tweeted out the clip that the Texans put on social media yesterday of him throwing a deep pass to Nico Collins, right? A guy that a lot of us have been waiting to see that breakout season. And I said in the tweet, if there's any year for Nico to break out, I think if Stroud's a quarterback, he can get the best out of him. So make it an open competition, get the best out of Stroud, and let the best man win, who, in my opinion, is CJ Stroud.
Yeah, so I'll say this. I think that Davis Mills will make it a competition just with his talent alone. And for everybody to say, oh, Lord, Keaton lost his mind, he said Davis Mills and talent in the same sentence. Listen, I've watched the Texans last year. The Texans were in my region, at the Draft Network, right? We study our NFL teams. Also, Texans were one of my teams. I've watched probably 10 Texas games, like a good bit of Texas games last year. And I don't know if you remember this, DP, but one of our conversations that we have in our scouting meetings, our guy Joe Marino, right? He was like, Keith, do you feel like the Texans just make everything a lot more difficult than what they have to be offensively? And I was like, Joe, that's exactly how I feel watching the Houston Texans offense. So my point is that we've seen bad Davis Mills, and I don't know if we're going to see good or great Davis Mills, right? If we're ever going to see that in the NFL. But my point is that I think in a better or easier offensive system, you may can see it, right? There's potential for him to play better than what he played under Pep Hamilton. And that's no slight to Pep Hamilton. Sometimes schemes just don't match talents, right? And we talked about this Houston Texans offensive line. I've seen people tweet it out, right? Like they locked up Titus Howard, Laramie Tunsil. They have Kenyon Green. They drafted a center, right? So this offensive line is looking okay. Damian Pierce. They added Xavier Hutchinson, Tank Dell, with Nico Collins, John
Mechie's back and healthy.
Right, tight ends, right? They have they have Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan. So they have some pieces to work with. So I do think that Davis Mills will make it a competition. But if you ask me who I think is going to win, I think CJ Stroud is going to win this, right? But you want like the competition, it makes everybody better, right? It makes everybody better. So that's what I'm excited, DP, to watch with this, because I think Davis Mills, and this is another key part, right, is that the head coach, DeMeco Ryans, he brought the 49ers OC with him to, I believe it was the offensive coordinator, or was he the quarterback coach? I know he brought someone from the 49ers on the offensive staff with him. And you know that offensive system, right, is a lot easier to understand, the play action, the boots, things like that. So that's why I'm anticipating for Davis Mills to play a little bit better, and it's not to just be kind of like a walk away home run type situation, with the Houston Texans quarterback battle.
No, and I think that is a big part of everything, man. It's just like competitors compete, and you want to see who's going to go out there. And I always say this: compound plays and days and stack days, right? Like, I don't want to just see one highlight of CJ Stroud. I want to see 12 of them. You know what I mean? I want to see some highlights of Davis Mills, because I was at Panthers training camp day one. It wasn't just a Bryce Young show. Matt Corral looked pretty good. Andy Dalton, outside of, I think, one interception, he was running the offense well. And that's a good problem to have when all your guys are looking good.
You'd rather have that problem. You'd rather have
that problem. Now you can question, like, all right, is the defense not playing up to par? Well, we'll see. But the point is, like, you want your quarterbacks to look good, and I think Houston Texans fans should absolutely want Davis Mills and CJ Stroud to pull the best out of each other, right? Because I promise you, if CJ, like we saw with, like we talked about Anthony Richardson, if CJ's back there and he watches Davis Mills like throw a rope, 40 yards downfield for a touchdown into a tight window, he's gonna dap him up, but he's gonna have that kind of stone cold look on his face, like, all right, if you can do that, let me show you what I can do. You know what I mean? And it's like not trying to one up each other, but it's just like, okay, it's a competition. I got to put my best foot forward every snap, every play, and things like that. Don't go chasing highlights, but just stack plays and compound days. Now, I'm looking forward to seeing just more from these two quarterbacks in camp, because as you talked about, offensive line, run game, they have weapons, right? They got some young weapons. I think they got Robert Woods. This is what they also brought over to be kind of the veteran in that wide receiver room. After he was let go, I think he was cut by the Texans, the Titans, or whatever. So you bring in you bring in a veteran after losing Brandon Cooks with all these young receivers. Man, I think that this is a situation where the Texans could be a little bit better than the betting odds are suggesting, with the Cardinals having that top 5 pick in the draft.
There you have it. DP is going to over, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, DP is going to over on whatever the over is for the Houston Texans season, man. He talked himself into it, right? He talked himself into it. So to listen out the roster, he's going to over on whatever the over under is for the wins, man. But DP, we're going to keep this thing going, man. And I'm going to tell you exactly where we're heading. We're heading to Sam Howell, right, with the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders, right? They've been in the news for all the wrong reasons, but it seems as though, obviously, they sold the team, and we're not going to get into the Dan Snyder stuff, but they're turning the page, right? And hopefully they can get into the news for all the right reasons, but it's going to start this year, and it's going to start with Sam Howell. So coming up next, man, we're going to get into this combination of Sam Howell, Ron Rivera, Eric Bieniemy coming in with this new leadership, this new team, this new look, this new feel with the Washington Commanders.
Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So a draft prep underway for the up-and-coming season. Let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. When the top tier of quarterbacks is off the board in fantasy football drafts in 2023, there's another line of luxury passers/runners who are guaranteed to fit your starting lineups every single week. One of them is Bears' Justin Fields, who started rolling out of the garage last season and is bound to jump into the fast lane this season. This time, on top of his huge rushing total, Fields can deliver improved stats through the air, with DJ Moore now leading the Chicago Bears wide receiver corps. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it, and they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time around. So go forth, crank up the AC, switch the gears, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. The training camp spotlight is always bright, Keith, and now we're shining that light from our place. We're shining it to D.C., to the Washington Commanders, to Sam Howell, Eric Bieniemy, Ron Rivera. Sam Howell, I think if you remember, again, being in Vegas, we were on live stream. Matt Corral went before Sam Howell, Ritter, Malik Willis. We were like, man, when's Sam Howell coming off the board? Fifth round, Sam Howell comes off the board. We didn't understand why he fell. Now he played what? He started was it one game against the Dallas Cowboys?
I think he did one
game towards the end of the season. And we saw the flashes of what we saw at North Carolina, the big arm, the ability to layer the ball and attack all three levels. And with the weapons that they have, the spotlight for him and this coaching staff is now him going into his first year as a full-time starter. You got one game sample size. Eric Bieniemy has been one of the better offensive play callers in the past couple years. Especially, a lot of people give credit to Mahomes and Andy Reid, which is true. But having Eric Bieniemy there, a guy is going to run the ball, give you play action looks, I think was the Super Bowl against the Niners when they did that old school formation from a play back when there was no color TV. It was just all black and white. It's like, who has the time to go back in the 1940s and find a play like this? Eric Bieniemy. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm excited to see what he's able to do with all of these weapons. Now, they don't have a tight end like a Travis Kelce, but when you got Terry McLaurin, you have John Dotson, you got you got three running backs essentially, but you got two true starters in Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson and everything, man. And Curtis Samuel as kind of that do-it-all X factor, man. That spotlight is bright, and I just want to see Sam Howell take command of this offense, learn this playbook, know it front to back, right? Know exactly what his coach is going to be asking of him. So I've seen some of the tweets like that he's looking pretty good already early in camp, but it's always early, right? You know what I mean? We got to wait till things kind of really truly pick up, but the spotlight is bright for him in DC, because in this division, you got Dallas, you have the Eagles, you got the Giants. You got the Giants. Yeah. So Sam Howell I'm gonna say this, Keith. I think Sam Howell has a chance to actually finish this season out as the third best quarterback in the division.
Okay, that's not bad, right? That's not bad, but is it enough? And I'm about to go this way with it, DP. And we're gonna have this conversation, right? For Sam Howell with the Washington Commanders, the reason he's the spotlight is because he has 1 year, and he has 1 year because we just talked about ownership coming in, right? We talked about potentially Eric Bieniemy being the head coach next year and Ron Rivera stepping down, right? Then we talked about this 2024 NFL quarterback class with, guess what? Caleb Williams, who is from Gonzaga, the DMV area, man. So all of the things align. So you're fighting against what they, kind of like the universe, right? You're fighting against the Marvin Harrison Jr. going to the Colts. You're fighting against the Joey Porter Jr. going to the Steelers. Like you're fighting against a storyline, right? Like the new regime, and then they get the hometown hero kid, almost like the LeBron James-esque type thing, right? Where you can potentially have that top pick and, your hometown guy comes in and plays really well and carries the team. You're fighting against that whole storyline. So that's why it's a spotlight for Sam Howell. Now, I'm real quick, right? You asked me, do I think he can be a solid quarterback? I do. I really do, DP. I think he can be a solid quarterback. I didn't understand why he fell. There was no bone in my body that would have took Matt Corral over Sam Howell. Not one bone. Not all. You got a lot of bones in your body. There was no bone that told me that Matt Corral was better than Sam Howell. So I didn't understand why he fell. And this was a guy that the year before, right? He was a top 10 pick. He was a lock, first rounder. He's that talented. Then 1 year later, he's 4 or 5 rounds later, which I didn't understand. I thought he played fairly decent football. Was everything technically clean? No, but we've seen much worse quarterbacks get drafted way higher than what Sam Howell went in the 5th round. Now, I'll tell you this, DP. You mentioned this, and I'm kind of a little bit on the other side of it, right? With as far as the Commanders' weapons. I do like, I love Terry McLaurin. I love Jahan Dotson. I think Curtis Samuel was solid. Now, the positions where I think they can upgrade is the running back and the tight end position, right? And then the O-line, they still have concerns there for me. And when you're talking about a young quarterback, I just always think run game, and I think easy completions to the tight end always help. And that's the 2 positions, or 3, O-line, running back, tight end, that they don't necessarily have a lot of depth and a lot of like just high level talent at with those positions. So that's the part where I'm like, okay, Sam, I don't even think you're in the greatest position, right? I think it's a decent position, but I don't know if you're in the greatest position. And then you also have the pressure of, like I said, new ownership and everything else. So the spotlight is definitely on Sam Howell, because he has to not only convince them for this year, you have to convince them to pass up on these quarterbacks for the next couple of years, right? In North Carolina, TB, you in North Carolina, I think North Carolina is not that far from the DMV area, right? So you're talking about Drake May as a possibility. Also, as far as that, the guy that's in close proximity that everybody has already gotten eyes on. So it'll be a rather interesting situation, right? And I think this thing is going to continue to fold. And I think it's going to be a storyline one way or another that keeps Sam Howell with the Washington Commanders, or it's part of his departure, right? It's going to be a narrative surrounding him. That's kind of how things going to kind of roll and how it's going to go with DP. That's Sam Howell, right? And we got a rookie on deck. We have a rookie on deck. I know nobody's expecting that, but Kyler Murray, he's coming off a torn ACL, right? And everybody's tweeting, and they're starting to build that hype up of that he potentially can come back early. Me, like I said, I've been on one side of it. I wouldn't rush it. Wait, take your time. Make sure he's 100% correct, especially if you're the Arizona Cardinals, because Kyler Murray at this point, he's your football team. You're void of talent in a lot of positions. He's your football team. So don't rush him. So we want to talk about the rookie that they drafted this year from Houston, Clayton Tune. And it's simple. Coach him up. So coming up next, man, we have our Coach him up segment on what we think the offensive guys, the head coach, should do with Clayton Tune as a quarterback this year.
All right, coaches, it's on you. It's time to coach up the rookie, Keith Clayton Tune. And I looked at their depth chart. It's Clayton Tune, of course, Kyler Murray, and Colt McCoy, where they're like top 3. And of course, Kyler Murray, like you talked about, to intro into this segment, coming off the ACL. Take your time. So it's in camp, it should be Colt McCoy and Clayton Tune. So if you could say anything to the Arizona Cardinals coaches, what would it be for them to coach up Clayton Tune?
Yeah, I think this keep, like you talked about, keep it simple, I think, in yesterday's podcast, but I would just move him on like strategically, right? Like don't throw too much at him, because we talk about Clayton Tune, a prospect, and that's why we talk about on the NFL Draft podcast, right? This is a guy that if he knew the playbook, and you've seen in Houston, he was comfortable. He was able to easily get through his progressions, right? He was surprisingly mobile, right? He had decent to moderate arm strength. And so you're like, okay, Keith, well, what are you describing? I'm describing that if y'all take care of y'all, the other things surrounding Clayton Tune, he can be okay. And like just how fans, New England fans in the NFL got excited about a Bailey Zappi last year, right? You can see some of the same things. Now, do I think he's in the same type of, well, no, I can't even say that, right? I was about to say New England, right? As far as their offensive structure, I can't even say that with New England last year with their offensive structure, even the talent. So I think obviously the Cardinals, it appears that they're transitioning, right? Like I don't know what they're transitioning to. Just what they're doing with the new head coach and GM and everything like that. But with Clayton Tune, there is something to be pulled out. I just say I wouldn't put too much on him because there is potential him there to develop, and then you try to get him some game action. And then now when you're talking about the Cardinals moving forward, it's like, what is your plan? Your plan is this, that you're potentially setting Clayton Tune up for if you have a bad season, right? That's more trade bait. Right now you have Kyler Murray and you have Clayton Tune for potential trade if you're sitting at the number 1 pick, or you keep Kyler Murray, trade Clayton Tune, trade the number 1 overall pick. So the Cardinals can really set themselves up. But for training camp, DP, I think that you want to feed him moderately, right? Don't throw in there, don't like those coaches. And I know you've seen it a lot with John Gruden, right? Where you just cussing the quarterback out and you don't understand this. And then it's like, what does that get us, right? Besides you just simply being able to, get your bravado off or your macho-ness, you cussing the quarterback out that that he don't know to play. Like, what does that get us, right? I had a coach, one of the great coaches, man, John Robinson, right? And I asked him, so he coached with USC, DP. He was like with, like back in like the 70s and the 80s, like won like multiple championships, right? So really like coaching Hall of Fame. He was like the Pete Carroll for USC, but like in the 70s, right? So really like revered guy in the NFL. And I asked him, like, man, what do you look for in good position coaches? And he was like, DP, simply, like, don't coach the obvious, right? He's like, so if the receiver dropped the ball, don't tell him catch the ball. He knows he's supposed to catch the football, right? Like tell him something else. Like show him how. And that's what I want to see. Like with Clayton Tune, because there's potential there. Don't just yell at me like, nah, pull up to the side. Come on. Hey, we got to get this right. Like get this right. Come on. Matter of fact, I'm not going to give you this long play call. I'll give you the shortened version of it. And I want you to take and roll. And if you only know 10 plays, that's the 10 plays we're going with. So that's kind of the approach that I was thinking about.
No, I'm with you on that. And I would say, almost a combination of spotlight and coach him up. Putting the spotlight on the offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing, what I mean, who spent time with the Browns, last season, dealing with Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson and everything. But even prior to that, he was the head coach. He was not the head coach, but he was a wide receiver coach. He spent 6 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. So you're talking about, being on the coaching staff and coaching up Stephon Diggs, who at the time set a career, high in receiving yards and finished 4th in the league in that season in yards per catch. Almost 18, working with Kirk Cousins, and different things like that. So I think his voice and his knowledge of dealing with different attitudes and different levels of expertise and all that type of stuff, I think that's going to be big for Clayton Tune, right? Help him get up to speed, Drew. Help him get there. And while I think one of the big things is kind of have a plan, like know what you want to do. Though, do you want Colt McCoy to be the starting quarterback if Kyler can't go? I'm gonna be honest with you. I would honestly want Clayton Tune to be the starter, like, because we know what Colt McCoy is. I view like this: Colt McCoy is essentially like another coach for you. I would allow Colt McCoy, because I remember when Colt got there to Arizona, Kyler like spoke so high of him because he's one of his favorite quarterbacks, but he's a guy who was a mentor to him. He started mentoring Kyler and helping Kyler out on the field, right? Seeing things different, viewing things different, all that type of stuff. And what we always talk about, helping young players learn how to be a pro. So I would more so I would actually open up to be like a little bit of a quarterback competition. Allow Clayton Tune to have the confidence to say, okay, so they're not just pigeonholing me as the second or third QB on the roster. They're going to allow me to come in and compete. And if they let me come in and compete, I mean, if you telling me there's a chance that I can be the starter, let me go out here and do my thing. And I think if Drew can get him up to speed, like you said, it creates a good situation for them. Because if Clayton Tune, let's say he gets 8 games, right? Clayton Tune gets 8 games, and because I don't believe Kyler Murray is not playing this year. Kyler Murray is going to play. I truly believe that. Is it going to be the start of the season? No, I don't think that they're going to allow him to start the season. You know what I mean? Just based off what you talked about from the torn ACL. Let's not rush this, right? We've seen it with RG3. We've seen it with other players, and you don't know exactly who you are physically right away. You need some time. So I don't think if we see Kyler, which I do believe we will, I think that's going to be week 8 through 10 is when we more than likely see Kyler, right? Especially if they have like a late bye, that's when we will probably see Kyler. But until then, say you start Clayton Tune. Let's say Clayton Tune plays. Not I say ball out. Let me not say that. Let's say he plays. Let's say he plays admirable, good football, right? So let's say he looks like Taylor. Was it Tyler Heineke? Whatever first name Heineke, like Taylor Heineke. Like let's say he looks like that, or you get a little bit of Brock Purdy from him, or stuff like that, where he looks like he shows that I'm a starting NFL quarterback, man. And if that happens, and then Kyler comes in, and maybe Kyler wins you a couple games, and you don't have the first overall pick. Well, guess what? Caleb Williams is not in our purview anymore, right? If we got pick 2, we trade that out or whatever. But then you can also trade, like you said, trade Clayton Tune to a team that needs a young quarterback, right? To at least come in and, like I said, is Bailey Zappi, can he be a Mac Jones? I think he could. I think his arm talent may be a little bit stronger than Mac's. I think and if I remember correctly, he's an actual athlete, in compared to Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. So there's so many different comparisons and examples of guys not being the most toolsy or the most gifted, but still be able to make enough plays at the NFL level to be considered a starting quarterback. So that would be my advice to the coaching staff, man. Coach him up, get him prepared, but allow him to compete for this job, and let Colt McCoy be his tutor. Let him be the understudy, where Colt McCoy is in his ear on the sideline. Hey, this is what you're looking at, the Microsoft Surface. Tell him this is where you went wrong. All right. If they show this again, do this. And then now you can expose them pre-snap to get advantageous opportunities.
Yeah, DP, I'm going to finish this off, make this last point real quick. And also with the coaching staff, be aware of your roster, right? We're talking about at running back, James Conner, Keontae Ingram, and Corey Clement, right? Wide receiver, we're talking about Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, and Greg Dortch, with Zach Pascal and Michael Wilson on deck, right? At tight end, Zach Ertz is out. Me talking Trey McBride with an offensive line that's not that good. So when I tell you to be conservative, that's what I'm telling you to do. Don't go 5 wide and thinking that you're about to beat everybody. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Run the ball, Drew. Run
the rock and try to get out of there with three yards in a cloud of dust and protect Clayton too, man, and hope that he developed the right way. But DP, that wraps it up for this show, man. I think that was a pretty good show, right? We was able to talk about, honestly, we could call this the young guys, right? This was the young guys. We talked about CJ Stroud, with Davis Mills is still fairly young, Sam Howell, right? Going into year 2, and then Clayton Tune is a rookie. So on this Friday, we really wanted to highlight these young guys so that way we can see. But we also know that somebody's going to be a starter, right? That's potentially 3 starters right there that we have to talk about. So that wraps it up for this week's of quarterback battles. I'm going to go ahead and drop the preview. Monday, we're talking about Dak Prescott. We're talking about those Dallas Cowboys and what does that situation, training camp, look like. I can guarantee you there's going to be a spotlight on him, right? Because the Dallas Cowboys, you either love them or you hate them. So we're definitely getting into that conversation coming on Monday. So make sure y'all tap in Monday.
For sure, man. We're going to have it was a fun show. We're going to have even more fun. Like I said, we're getting into those Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott, as Keith alluded to. Guys, go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it's available. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, right? Hit the bell notification so you are notified whenever we drop these episodes. On the audio side, go download and hit for automatic download, so you don't even have to go search for it. It just comes right to your phone every time Apple Podcasts or Spotify puts our podcast on the airwaves. Go do that. Also, leave a 5-star review and let us know what you think, man, and show us some love there. In terms of Twitter, you can find and follow Keith Sanchez at The Talent Code. Me, Damian Parson, DP_NFL. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.